Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. We've got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up this screen. 8 or a 9-game conference schedule. That's what's going to be discussed at the SEC meetings. And it's not as simple as we thought it was going to be. I thought there was a high likelihood we were going to do the 9-game SEC conference games, add 1, which would have you set up playing 3 permanent opponents, and then 6 that would flip every year. So you'd play every team at least every 2 years, and then you'd have 3 teams you'd play every year. For Tennessee, that would have been Alabama, Vanderbilt, and probably South Carolina or Kentucky, one of those 2, which I'm okay with that. That's fine. However, there's a bunch of teams that don't want to go to the 9-game schedule, and it kind of surprises me a little bit on some of the coaches, but others I totally understand. Look, if you're Vanderbilt, you do not want a 9th SEC game, because what that'll do is eliminate your possibility of going to a bowl game. I'm sure Missouri doesn't like that, and there's other teams that don't like it either. And these 3 guys don't like it. Beamer, Mark Stoops, and Nick Saban. They're not in favor of it. And these 2 guys, it doesn't surprise me, but this guy does, and he's got a lot of power. So if Nick Saban doesn't want it, the SEC's going to listen.
Logical.
So here's a story by Blake Topmeyer, who's a very good writer. He writes for the USA Today Network, and this is on the Tennessean. And they're going to be meeting next week in Miramar Beach, Florida. And they're going to talk about the SEC schedule format. They were going to try to get it done last year, but they weren't able to do it. And they don't have a football schedule approved after this season. Said Greg Sankey told Topmeyer in early March that he expected a vote on the schedule to occur within 90 days by the end of spring meetings. By April, he'd eased on that timeline. Sankey said, could be. When asked if the schedule would be decided at the meetings, he said, I said that last year too. Said coaches and administrators debated 8 and 9-game schedule formats a year ago. No vote occurred. And here it said, eventually a vote must occur next week, maybe. And of course, like he said, this is the final year for SEC divisions. Everything's going into one pod. And it's all about whether you're going to stick with the 8-game or the 9-game. And realize the 9-game would be new. We've always done 8, or have for years and years and years. And in either schedule, teams will play other SEC members a minimum of once every 2 years. I do like that. I like that for both of the schedules. I think you should play every team in the conference at least every 2 years. You shouldn't skip a team for 5 years like we've done with Ole Miss or LSU. We never play those teams, it seems like, except, just on some freak occurrence. 8-game format, you'd have one fixed rival. What I don't like about this is I would be fine with it if it didn't look so bad for Tennessee, because we're going to be stuck with Vanderbilt, which, as far as an advantage, that is an advantage. The Tennessee homer in me likes that. It's like, okay, we've got the guaranteed win every year, and nobody else has the guaranteed win. But I don't want a bunch of people giving us crap about it. Oh, your fixed opponent's Vanderbilt. So the competitor in me doesn't like it, but I can see why somebody would. The other thing that I do not like about the 9-game format is that you would not play another Power 5 team. Like we're playing Virginia this year. The year before we played Pittsburgh, which was a really fun game. We split that with Pittsburgh, and it was super competitive. And, teams like that, I enjoy playing out of the conference a real team. Now, I know Virginia's down this year, but typically Virginia's not horrible. They're usually decent. Or you could play a North Carolina, or, might play a Clemson. So I enjoy those games. Playing Oklahoma with Butch Jones when we had the game won, it's like, those are fun. You don't get to do that very often, just once a year. And that would be lost with a 9-game deal, because what they're going to do is they're going to play 3 easy wins after that. So the more I've thought about this, I was leaning 3-6. Now I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm fine with the 8-game or the 9-game. I see the pluses and the minuses on both of them. And here it says Kentucky and South Carolina are among the schools on record favoring staying with 8 games. Florida, LSU, and Texas A&M favoring 9. But it's not just the haves and have-nots. Nick Saban told the publication that Alabama favors sticking with 8-game conference, a pivot from his years-long pandering to a 9-game. And his hang-up is having to play us, LSU, and Auburn every year. He thinks that's too tough and not fair, whereas we'd be playing Alabama, probably South Carolina or Kentucky, and then Vanderbilt, which There's not that much difference between those two, but Vanderbilt is the one that weakens ours. And here's the thing. This wouldn't be that tough based on the last 10 years, but he's saying these teams are better than that. And he was right about that last year because he lost to 2 of them. It says one downside of sticking with 8 conference games would be the sacrifice of some long-standing annual secondary rivalries like Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, Georgia. I can understand that fully. We got Oklahoma and Texas coming in. They're also looking out for Clemson and Florida State because who knows what's going to happen to the ACC. They're in a world of hurt over there. Several ACC schools have been reporting and examining the bonds of media rights that has kind of got them handcuffed through 2036. Who signs a deal for 20 years in today's day and age? That's just crazy. So now they're stuck. The ACC stuck with $240 million a year, whereas the SEC gets $810 million, and the Big Ten supposedly was going to get $1 billion, but there's a bunch of screw-ups in that contract, so it's probably going to be closer to $900 million. But again, $240 million versus $800 or $900 million. And here's the thing: our contract's up 6 years before theirs, so we're going to get more than $800 million a year after that. So if you're in the ACC, you are such a have-not; it's ridiculous, and that stinks for Clemson, Florida State, and all those other teams because they could get big money in the SEC. But you know what? Florida State, you had the opportunity to join the SEC, and you decided to run over to the ACC for your little easy wins. Didn't work out for you too good because you've done like crap over there. Anyway, it did work out for Clemson. They took the easy route, and it's worked out great for them. They're also going to talk about court storming or field storming, which that totally affects us because if we beat Georgia this year, the field will be stormed. Yeah, we will definitely storm the field, so we'll probably get penalized for that. And they had talked about even the loss of a home game, that they might flip it back to having to play the opponent at their home field as a penalty, which is insane. That would cost the town tens of millions of dollars, and it's just a stupid idea. Shut up, Greg Sankey.
Shut up!
So this is a dilemma. Are we going to stick with an 8-game schedule, or are we going to go to the 9? I thought it was about a 75% to 90% chance we were going to 9. Now I'm at 50-50. With Nick Saban, being upset about it, wanting to stay with 8. You've got several teams. I know Vanderbilt wants to stay with 8. I'm sure Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky. I think Josh Heupel said 9, but I don't think he cares. And I think that's going to be the difference, is that a lot of coaches are not strongly wanting the 9, but there are several coaches that are strongly wanting the 8. So even if there's less coaches or presidents that want a certain number, the ones that want 8 feel strongly about it. So even if it's a lower number, that's going to be a tough vote because you don't want to force things like that on a vote that's close because it's going to breed a lot of resentment, and I'm sure Greg Sankey wants things to be smooth. So we've got ourselves a moving target right now, and I am not comfortable saying one way or the other whether this is going to be an 8-game or a 9-game schedule. I'm really not. I think this could go either way, and I am lowering my odds of it going to a 9-game from 75 to 90 down to 50-50. So that's where we are.
Okay.
And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols and the SEC and all that good stuff. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just boop, hit that little button. Costs you nothing. Helps me out. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's my most recent video, and YouTube thinks you'll love that video. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.